Thank you for viewing this YouTube archive of a Conscious Consumer Network broadcast. Please feel free to share it far and wide. Check out our weekly broadcast guide for weekly updates on scheduled broadcasts. Help keep us on the air by contributing to our network support fund. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or get in touch via email. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Hi everybody, welcome again to the People's Free Energy Show, and we've got another huge show for you today. We're going to cover a giant topic. Yes. It is electronic harassment and targeted individuals, and this is a very unique show because we do have some personal experiences, and what this show does is it's going to go through some of the darker technologies, the advanced technologies, some of the black ops types of technologies, things that are not in our everyday lives that they're actually using on the human population without our consent.
Yes.
So before we freak out too much, because some of the stuff we're going to show you is really going to make you like freak out a little bit, because it's like this stuff is very real and it's scary. I just want to make sure that through this whole thing, we let you know that we're going to provide solutions, okay? Because there's things you can do to protect yourself, yes. And you don't have to be afraid, just be aware.
That's right.
So once again, I just ask that you please look at the information, keep an open mind, and allow yourself to absorb this knowledge that we're trying to pass on to you. You want to say a few words about sharing your testimony?
Yes, just briefly. One of the reasons why we decided to do targeted individuals and electronic harassment and gang stalking as an episode is because, well, I'm a targeted individual. It's something I've had to deal with for the past 2 years, at least on the electronic harassment side. And it's something I'd like to share because I truly believe that over the next coming years, you're going to find people online sharing their experiences into a growing epidemic, which I believe are done by individuals who have narcissistic and psychopathic behavior. So I'm just going to briefly talk about my experiences here, but if you want to get the full breadth of the interview that we did yes. Early last year, it was done in a Real Speaks episode, and you can get to that on the Hope Girl 587 channel on YouTube.
Yes, and that actually, just a little bit of feedback about that. We've got a few thousand views on that video so far.
Yes, that's right.
And loads of comments from very grateful people, because Tavon's not the only one who's gone through this. We don't even know how many. Yeah. Thousands of people that are victims of gang stalking and electronic harassment that are targeted individuals. So putting this information out here the way that we're doing it is actually going to help bring some sanity to a lot of people that are suffering from
yes.
these types of attacks, and they don't know what it is.
Yes.
So without any further ado, let's dive into our slideshow here and go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay. So we're going to start with some vocabulary terms. And take it away, Tavon.
Okay, so the first word for the free energy vocabulary is radiant energy. The energy of the electromagnetic and gravitational radiation. It's a form of energy that can travel through space. The SI unit of radiant energy is the joule.
And let's go back and forth. I'll take the next one.
Okay.
We're going to talk about orgone energy as one of our vocabulary terms. It's a noun. It's the universal life force energy defined by scientist Wilhelm Reich in the 1930s. also defined as etheric energy, prana, chi, biophotons, soft electron, and scalar field. And we're going to cover some of Wilhelm Reich's work later on in this show.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more terms.
Okay, next word, orgonite. Simply metal shavings. It's a device that you make, handmade. That's simply metal shavings in quartz crystals encased in epoxy or fiberglass resin. The concept was invented by a Carl Hans Wells using metal powders in resin. It's used to clear the environment from harmful effects of electrosmog. It's also a technology that is based on Wilhelm Reich's orgone energy.
And also we have the EM field. This is an electromagnetic field, also EM field, is a physical field produced by electrically charged objects. It is comprised of electrical and magnetic potentials, and affects the behavior of charged objects in the vicinity of the field. The electromagnetic field extends indefinitely throughout space and describes the electromagnetic interaction.
And the last word is psychotronics,
Wow.
a particular branch of parapsychology developed by the Soviet-era Eastern Bloc that supposes an energy or force to emanate from living organisms and affect matter. Now, this sounds very similar to orgone. Coined in 1967 by Zdeněk Rijak.
Very good. Want to say it again?
No.
No? Okay.
The research led to numerous conferences into the field during the 1970s and 80s and sparked Cold War fears of mind control and directed energy weaponry. Basically, psychotronics now is considered directed energy weapons.
Okay. Now here, this looks like a list.
It's simply just a link of the materials that we're going to be discussing today. You can go on all of these links to basically verify what's being discussed on our presentation.
So yeah, once again, these shows, we work really hard on putting them together. In the last couple of weeks, we've spent many days finding these links, putting this information together into yet another research packet that is this slideshow. So anyone who's affected by this or wants to learn more about this, they can go into this and they can find all the links that they need so that they can go and inform themselves and educate themselves. And I have to say it, knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
And
in this case,
it's very true.
knowledge is detrimental. It's important.
Yeah, yes, it's very important, or lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge.
Yeah, so you need to know what you're dealing with here so that you can protect yourself, so that you can be strong in your everyday life. All right, so we're gonna head into gang stalking. Okay, so just believe it or not, people still don't know what this is.
Yes.
Okay, it's been around for several years. They've been calling it gang stalking. They put a name to it, but it's very real, and it's not really very well known. And if you are a targeted individual and you have these things happening to you, you might be watching this show right now, and this show.
You are.
Yeah, I hope you are. This show might change your life, and it might free you. It might be like the show that changes everything because you realize, holy crap, this is happening to me. And so let's go ahead and let's talk about gang stalking.
Okay. Gang stalking is also known as cause stalking, organized vigilante stalking, stalking by proxy, community-based harassment, and covert war. These are basically harassment and discrediting campaigns waged against a targeted individual. Neighbors are often recruited to participate. Other recruits tend to come from extremist groups, witch covens, secret societies, public servants, satanic cults, and also co-workers. It is an operation comprised of rogue factions within society, private security firms and or organized criminal mafias that have access to both private and government resources. Now, this might not be official access, by the way. This could be through people who are members of these groups.
Can you pick up?
Sure.
The purpose of such a program is to frame, isolate, and destroy a target financially, socially, and professionally via slander, framing for non-existent criminal activities, online harassment, and following the target everywhere he or she goes. Targets are whistleblowers, good Samaritans, minorities, artists, activists, and others from different groups of people who have been labeled as a domestic threat. They are followed and harassed by civilian groups who have been hired by private security companies who either directly or under contract have classified security access within the law enforcement, intelligence, or ex-military intelligence. In addition, covert federal agencies are granted large budgets with unknown agendas.
In continuation of the definition, gang stalking is also called nowadays as COINTELPRO 2.0. Now, the original COINTELPRO started in the 1950s but as an obscure branch of CIA's MK Ultra project group during the Cold War. Modern COINTELPRO style harassment consists of unique, carefully engineered, unprovable events in addition to the mental torture to produce psychological stress in the victim as the just cause for their forced removal from society. So you want to remove someone. You want to bring about a situation among their neighbors, contacts who they associate with that to say that this person needs to be removed. They're crazy, something's wrong with them. If you're in an official capacity, that works. But while you're doing that, you also have another group out there actually driving this person into some stressed level. So the intended outcome is one or more of the following. Create a violent reaction within the target, leading to a criminal offense, thus perpetuate the need for a police state in reaction to growing domestic terrorism, aka making a Manchurian candidate. Look up Manchurian candidate to find out what that is. Repeat incarceration of the victim due to minor offenses. Most likely the victim was triggered to act out. Some police within local law enforcement may be involved in this setup.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Either forced or induced detention in a psych ward. A V2K target victim is encouraged to seek professional help if they tell acquaintances, family, or friends that they hear voices. And induced suicide. Depression and financial ruin compels victims to commit suicide, prime motive of the operation. If the victim dies, this form of assassination is also called soft kill. Directed energy may also be used to brute force trigger the heart muscle to beat irregularly. Is the target wearing a pacemaker? Okay, so we're bringing in gang stalking first because they use electronic technology along with this gang stalking.
They can do. For those who are target individuals, you might not get the full brunt of the electronic harassment. At different levels, it depends on the situation. For a lot of people, it just might be on the street actors, people following you around, just out run-in-the-mill type of activity. Okay. So initially, someone with access to the COINTELPRO program, meaning someone you ran into, you might have had an argument with, maybe you broke up with someone and it's like a revenge attack, for example. They have access to this COINTELPRO program or database that blacklists the target. A covert investigation is then performed on a target, and this may take months, years, some period of time. Now, through the covert and overt surveillance, all information about your life is black hole, meaning these people gather everything about you. Online, social activity, sexual habits, employment, friendships, family ties, and finances are monitored. A corrupt psychological profile, aka black record, is then created. This black record is what is used to fabricate a script and hire perpetrators to use this to create a smear campaign about you to your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, your ex. It goes on and on. And by the way, there might be a situation where you get hired. By the way, I have no criminal record, no driving tickets, no offenses, and your criminal record shows up as negative. This this record I'm talking about is different from that. It's like a parallel record that follows you around.
It's your file.
It's your file, but it's a corrupt file.
It's a corrupt file that you can never see.
That you can never see.
You can't even see your own file, but everybody else that's involved in these programs can see it. And so just to talk a little bit about that, where you have you're trying to go to a new employer,
Yes.
so you get a new job, and then you go to your new job, and all of a sudden they start speaking the same language that the last employer was speaking to you,
Yes.
right? They're using trigger words,
Trigger words,
code
trigger
words,
phrases after a period of time. They haven't done it before, but then they start doing it after a period of
and
time.
things are like acting a little weird. It's a psychological game, and so let's keep going on.
You want to read this?
In every series of stress event type 1 introductory event, the end result is a virtual isolation control grid. It's created around the targeted individual, or TI. Finally, for the electronic harassment to activate, your EEG and biorhythms must be captured to be uploaded to platforms the perps use to primarily track and electronically harass you 24/7. We're going to go into in-depth into that, because they get a signature on your body, right, so that they can follow you around.
Just so you know, the EEG is your brain scan.
Excuse me. In every series of stress event type, 1 introductory event, very high energy effect is staged. The obvious purpose is to be certain the victim knows that this is external harassment. There are no events which do not fit that apparent purpose. Okay, so we're going to play a video now, and this is an example of gang stalking, but this was done in a strange way. This was a family that lived in a neighborhood, and they all started doing things to make them feel like they were going crazy by honking the horns, right?
That's right.
They were honking horns on their cars. Every single person in the neighborhood. It was like a community gang stalk watch.
And also
program.
mind the type of cars that are doing this, just to show that not only a lot of people can be involved in this against one group or one family or one person, but also be people on their, let's say, shift on their job.
Right, so you had police cars doing it, you had fire trucks doing it, it was everybody doing it to this family. So Biggie, go ahead and this is the evidence of gang stalking ABC News clip. It's about 6 minutes or so. Go ahead and run the clip, Biggie.
We've all had nasty neighbors, but an entire town? Think how annoyed you get when just one person honks at you. Now imagine all your neighbors driving by sitting on that horn 24/7. Are they tormenting one family, or did that family wear out its welcome? We want you to decide. Here's Paula Ferris.
Of all the homes in Hubbard, Ohio, it might be the last one you'd expect folks to fight over. But this vacant house on East Liberty Street is the hottest property since good old Nehemiah Hubbard founded the town 200 years ago. Oh, what a fuss over a little fixer-upper.
This all started in 2007 over a simple real estate deal, correct?
Right. It was the property next door here.
Meet Rick and Cindy Kurlich, longtime Hubbard residents. They say all they wanted was to buy the property next door. The only problem? It wasn't for sale. These folks, John and Marlene Clementi, had inherited half the house. The other half was tied up in court. But Rick Kurlich tried to buy it anyway, even though it had been in the Clementi family for generations.
I says, well, you're not getting my land. And I said, that's not right. It's my family since 1922. How could you do that?
The Clement family called me up and they told me to take my bid off the table. And if I didn't take my bid off the table, we'd be bitter enemies for life.
Rick never got the house, but he says he's still paying for what he did. As the town fire chief, Clementi had lots of friends, and as the town fire chief, Clementi had lots of friends, and as the town fire chief, Clementi had lots of friends, and suddenly Rick and Cindy say it seemed like every single one of them was driving by honking the horn. And it wasn't to say hello.
The Clement family conspired together to organize a horn-blowing campaign against us. That's really what this is all about.
Ask not for whom the horn blows, it blows for Rick and Cindy Kurlich.
In the beginning, it was 100 times a day.
100 times a day.
100.
So they began planning their payback. Their house now bristles with expensive surveillance cameras. As we were looking them over, just watch what happened.
The last camera is down here on the tree.
Okay. Oh, somebody just honked their horn. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's never
Was that a
ending.
friendly honk?
Probably not.
Okay.
Rick says his ear is now finely attuned.
You can tell an import horn from a domestic horn.
Who are these horn blowers? Not just people in the town, but people who work for the town. Firefighters, including some from the department John Clementi ran, and police. Here's one of Hubbard Township's finest, not serving, not protecting, just honking. It's enough to wake the dead. This hearse caught 10 times. And would you look at this? The horn on the bus goes, an education for Hubbard's next generation of horn blowers. Rick and Cindy renamed their dining room the evidence room.
Wow.
There's more in the basement.
There's hundreds and hundreds of photographs and discs and stuff here.
You're like a detective. So when did people start blowing the horns? Were you recruiting people, telling them to get this guy out of town?
That's what he tells everybody.
John says he can explain everything. His son's girlfriend and some of her friends would occasionally blow the horn, but he says that was just their way of saying goodbye. But he says that was just their way of saying goodbye. But he says that was just their way of saying goodbye.
When they would leave the house, the girls would toot the horn just to let them know they're leaving.
A little toot? Yeah, Rick says, like this car leaving the Clementi's driveway at 4 in the morning.
Does the city of Hubbard have a horn blowing epidemic?
An epidemic? No. We do have a problem in one particular area.
We patrolled around town with the police chief, Jim Tafe.
At some point, people began blowing horns, but it became clear at another point that on occasion it was used to harass the person that lived there.
Kurlich began taking horn blowers to court. He says he got orders of protection against more than a dozen people, and he didn't stop there. He started suing. Somebody beeps, Rick sues. Beep, sue. At the Trumbull County Courthouse, the legal paperwork is piling up. Rick is now suing no fewer than 40 alleged hornblowers, including the Clementis.
This isn't my job, and I don't want to do this, and I'm sad that I have to.
Kurlich versus everybody.
It seems like the town of Hubbard is against the Kurliches and everybody's in on it now.
Why wouldn't you be against them?
If you beep your horn one time, he'll take you to court. Just a regular beep.
Does the city of Hubbard want the Kurliches to leave?
I believe so.
Do you think you've made matters worse?
We don't know how else to stop it.
We knew it was a long shot, but we asked both sides if they would consider mediation.
We would love it for it to stop, but how do you get everybody in Hubbard to come to a meeting and say stop?
Now there's a thought. Get everybody in Hubbard to come to a meeting.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, Rick, that's just what we're gonna do. It's the 2020 Barbecue Peace Summit.
Yeah, all right.
But will the warring parties or anyone else bother to show up?
All right, we're going to move into electronic harassment. And I want everybody to try to look at all the information that we're covering, because you might say that doesn't really apply to me because this is this, that, or the other. But this stuff is going on our entire planet right now, okay, in many different countries. It's all coming down from these like upper echelon levels of government surveillance, all this stuff. So it really is all connected.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into electronic harassment. And what will we be talking about? Some of the different devices that are used, right?
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more devices. And we'll start with a brief overview of what it is, and then kind of go into some of the technology.
Okay, because these devices are really, they're pretty interesting. And also, I just wanted to warn everybody ahead of time that we do have a pretty graphic picture coming up of a body. So I want to make sure if you got any kids around that we'll let you know before we put it on the screen. But it's necessary to put the information out so we can show some of the effects of some of this equipment. So take it away.
Okay. Electronic harassment is the use of electromagnetic devices to harass or kill another human being. These devices are also known as soft kill weapons because they try to do it over a long period of time so that it's unprovable for people or the coroners, for example, to ascertain exactly how that individual died. Electronic harassment uses directed energy weapons to torment, agitate, cause illness, and slowly cook the victim over a long period of time. You cannot see the beam, and the effects are silent. It's the ultimate active denial killing weapon. No one's going to own up to murdering you using this mode because it's so silent.
Such use is a violation of rights of the human being under the Nuremberg Treaty. Okay, and that Nuremberg Treaty?
Yeah, and that'll be cited again in an upcoming video.
Yeah, we're going to show a really powerful testimony video. But the Nuremberg Treaty basically said you can't experiment on humans without their
consent, basically,
or their knowledge.
For any reason.
Right.
No reason.
Okay, so this is used in mind control programs, electronic harassment. They use it in mind control programs in order for real-time mind reading, erasing thoughts and memories, and short-term memory loss. They employ voice-to-skull microwave technology to disrupt the human psyche. Dark neural linguistic programming uses threatening, abusive phrases to control thought patterns and behavior. Transmitted phrases can be looped via a recorder with a live operator directly to the skull as a form of noise torture. This disrupts sleeping patterns, hypnotizes the subject, and occult practices are used. In recent years, the number of gang stalking harassment claims has risen such that there are many support groups for targeted individuals in communities and online. So what we want to make sure that we convey is we're trying to do a 3D presentation of the equipment and the technology that's used. We're not really going into the esoteric too much as far as, this energy field and that, ascended
really
master.
important.
Like, we're not going into those places. We're just trying to keep it on a practical level so you can see the technology that is being used in the reality of our world.
Yes.
And we're going to show some really telling videos as well.
That's correct. That's right.
So let's go ahead. So what's this?
Okay, so this is just a simple overview of this technology that we're talking about. Is basically, if you understand how a microwave works, then you have pretty much a good idea of what is being used against you. It's that simple.
Okay. So understanding that everybody uses, well, not everybody, but a lot of people use microwave ovens to heat up their food and their coffee or whatever. And when we get to parts like when we talk about metal, think about what happens when you put metal in a microwave, right? You can't put metal in the microwave because it'll explode.
Or heats up.
Or heats up. And so if you've got metal in your body and you're being microwaved,
over a long period of time.
Over a long period of time, that's what happens. Also, if you understand basic things like cell phone signals and how that works, and also Wi-Fi in your house. So these are like the practical things that can help somebody understand that they've taken those forms of technology and they've created weapons out of that
Unfortunately.
stuff. So it's, here's an example. This is an interesting picture.
It really looks like a microwave oven that has the door taken off. And with that golden trapezoidal form is what's called a horn. It simply focuses the beam. It's like a microwave oven with a horn at the end of it.
So it'll focus the beam of what's going on in the microwave.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here's some more pictures of these different weapons.
Yes. So some of this stuff you can actually buy online because they're used as they're called dispersion tools to get rid of rodents and bugs. So what you're looking at is ultrasonic. These are basically ultrasonic deterrent equipment that you can purchase online. The parabolic dish in the upper left-hand corner is an ultrasonic transmitter. And what you see in the others are ultrasonic transmitters. The only one that isn't is in the middle on the left is a golden horn. That's more like a microwave type piece of equipment that someone's built.
Now, you've seen some stuff like this. Like I see that they're using it for crowd control, right?
Yes.
They have these big boxes on top of these military jeeps.
Yes.
And they'll just beam a sound wave onto a crowd to make everybody hold their ears and leave the area.
Yes.
Extremely effective, that's for sure. And there's movies too where I think it was like Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a scene in there where they used a sound weapon and then everybody's ears started bleeding. Right?
Yeah, they're called non-lethal weapons, but in some protests, I mean, if you actually see the footage, some people actually do get permanent deafness depending on how it's used. People do suffer with ear damage being in the middle of those things.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to go into this now.
Okay.
I want to make sure I don't forget talking about Greg Giles as well, because I forgot to put a slide in there about that, but let's go through this first, because we're talking about hearing voices in your head and how they can use this equipment to put voices in your head.
Now, this particular technology you see on the screen is using ultrasonics to focus the beam at one particular spot in a room, so that if you step over that spot, only you hear the noise. But technology has advanced far beyond that, so that it can do the same thing. The same thing can be done with electromagnetic fields, and not just to one spot, but to one person. But this is just to show the proof of concept that you can have effects in a specific area, and no one else experiences those effects.
All right, so we're going to go into a video pretty soon, but before we do that, I just want to mention one more thing, and I didn't have a chance to put that slide together, but recently I put out an article on the Hope Girl blog about Greg Giles. That was his name, right? Greg Giles? And he was one of these new age blogger types that was blogging for quite some time, and he basically came to a point where he said, I am under the influence. I am a victim of electronic harassment. So he's dealing with this gang stalking. He's been dealing with this electronic harassment, and he was getting voices beamed into his head from this equipment. And you're going to see a video that shows exactly how it's done. Or a couple of different videos. So that's something that I just want to put a bit of a warning out there to everyone. Having your own knowledge base, being able to think for yourself, having some kind of discipline in your life, whatever it is, whether it's a spiritual discipline or a martial art or something like that, is so important, because that keeps you grounded and strong, and that you won't have to deal with this stuff. But there's a lot of people that are just so easily led by a lot of these gurus online and all these different movements, especially the New Age movement. And there's a lot of information out there that says that it's been a designed movement and it's been planned. And we're finding evidence that government levels are projecting things into people's heads to make them put stuff out there so that everybody will follow them. My personal opinion, I think the agenda there is an apathetic society of people that won't take action against what's being done to them. People that just want to kind of, love and light their way and not take any action and just be apathetic. So I'm bringing all of this up because one of the New Age leaders that was doing channeled messages from the ascended masters and all of that stuff, he came out recently and said, I am a victim of mind control through this electronic harassment, and basically everything that I've said, all this ascended master stuff, has all been put into my head, and I've been told to say this to you. I thought it was real, but they put this into my head.
We thought he was hearing from higher beings.
He thought he was hearing from higher beings. Now, I'm not saying that that stuff can't be real. I'm sure that people communicate with Creator, and there's all kinds of spiritual stuff that goes on, but there are many individuals out there that are hearing voices in their head, and they think that they're hearing voices from Andromeda or some other place, and it could be this equipment that we're about to show you. So we're going to show 2 clips. The first one's a little bit longer, and then the second one is just another example. So go ahead, Biggie, the OSEH, voice to skull, if you can go ahead and run that clip.
This man, Dr. Joseph Pompey, who's got a thing about annoying people with sound.
Hey, you. Ma'am. Ma'am, please wake up. No sleeping in the library.
Most people of his age don't know much about sound. The most antisocial they can get is turning their car's hi-fi up in a quiet neighborhood. Dr. Pompey has studied sound for so long he's got letters after his name, and he came up with something a bit better.
That's not a speaker system. Now this is a speaker system.
The whole idea of his sound spotlight system is to make sure that only one person can hear him, even though they're 20 meters away.
Hey, you there. You on the laptop. Are you downloading illegal files to the library network? I hope not. Hey, you there. Studying. Miss, can you hear me? I think it's time for a break. Hey, you. Looking at CDs. We're watching.
Taking the mickey out of innocent readers might seem a bit childish, but there's a reason why Dr. Pompey comes here to test his kit.
A library is about the most sensitive area you can think of for background noise and generating sound that people don't want to hear. But with the audio spotlight, we can deliver sound specifically directly to people within the library without bothering the other people that are reading quietly. One of the things is we can bring in a couple of Latin dancers, send them some hot salsa music. They can dance all they like in the middle of the library to all the music that they want without bothering the other people nearby who want to sit, read, or work quietly.
The system works like this. First, your voice is transformed into high-frequency ultrasound, sound so high no one can hear it. Ultrasound is highly directional, so, like a torch, it can be pointed at someone standing a long way away. Although they cannot hear the ultrasound, it causes secondary vibrations in the air around them, and it's that sound the person hears.
So if you imagine you're in a room and I shine a flashlight at you, it's very bright for you, but it's very dark for everybody else. Much the same way, the audio spotlight creates a very narrow beam of sound that you can shine at a listener. They hear it very clearly, and it doesn't create noise that might bother other people in the same space.
It's already being used in museums, and soon Dr. Pompey hopes he'll have his system in TV sets, so that only one person in the room can hear it. The others can get on with something much more boring. But whatever its practical use is, it remains a great toy.
Hey, excuse me, miss. That's a really nice shirt you've got on.
These are called electromyographic signals.
The signals are picked up by electrodes planted on the skin.
The electrodes basically look like this. They're tiny little pads, much like you have in a doctor's office. So if she said the future out loud,
The future?
we have the signal that's corresponding to that muscular activity. But with subvocal speech, she doesn't have to move her mouth. She could say that word silently. So she would say the future silently. Here she said the future, but she didn't move her lips. And you can see that there's still the same signal being picked up by the electrodes underneath her throat.
Once the electrodes capture the signal, they can be transmitted, as if through a cell phone, to someone with an earpiece receiver.
So the newer sensors are the size of a dime, and they're going to continue to get smaller in the not very distant future.
In Chicago, Illinois, a world authority on microwave hearing shows how it could work.
I'm hearing a microwave pulse like a click. Now it sounds like a chirp with a tonal quality to it.
Professor James Lynn is hearing sounds that aren't there, but he's not crazy. Pulses of microwave energy are being generated and fired at him from behind.
Microwaves can be heard depending on the individual, depending on the hearing acuity of the individual. Individuals with a fairly normal hearing can hear microwaves at quite a low level.
The energy of the absorbed microwaves causes brain tissue to very slightly heat up and expand, causing a pressure wave to be picked up by the hearing mechanism in the inner ear. Professor Lynn is far from hearing voices, but it could be possible to send coded signals to an agent this way.
Brain is an electrical organ. It is susceptible to electrical signals. Since microwave is electrical, therefore, in principle, one could embed or encode information in the microwave signal.
All right, so we have another video we're going to show you now. This one is something I came across years ago before I even knew about all this stuff. And at first I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. So what it is, I'm going to have to explain it a little bit because it's a really short video and they don't explain what it is that you're seeing. It is a billboard that is up on a building that's on a major street in a city neighborhood somewhere. And they have one of these speakers, right, that can beam sound into your head so it sounds like a voice in your head. Now, the advertisement is meant for, I think it's some kind of a haunted house attraction, right? It's like around the Halloween time of year, and they're having a haunted house, and they're trying to get people to come to the haunted house. So they put this billboard up, and they have this person whispering, "It's not your imagination."
Yeah.
What's that? Who's there? Right? So you're going to hear that, and you'll see the people reacting, but you have to watch really closely, and you have to really listen, because as they move, you'll start to hear it. So these are sounds that are actually projected into your head that you can walk by. So this is what they can do, and they actually started doing it on a billboard out in the public to see if it was
as an advertising
thing,
yeah,
because they thought it was cool, but they're actually using this on people without telling them that that's what they're doing. So anyway, go ahead, Biggie, and run the clip.
I had to get my girls to come on, have a look. It's not your imagination. What's that? Who's there? It's
All right, that's pretty creepy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was. All right, so we're going to move forward as usual, and going on to electronic harassment, modes of attack. I will let you take it away and share my screen.
All right. Okay, so the next two slides are basically just going to cover the modes of attack once you become a target, at least in the electronic harassment side. For it to be consistent, what you see here is a diagram of the different modes of attack that you will experience, or the things they experience, the thing that TIs complain of when you do this research. So what you see here are several ways. The top one is you're walking by a cell phone tower. You're experiencing signals. You're probably experiencing V2K at this point, or whatever is happening to you. And as you probably notice that when you approach like a cell phone tower, the intensity seems to increase. So this technology has the ability to piggyback on current modes of transmission in the microwave band. The next illustration below that shows, go back.
Okay.
The next illustration shows how you can be hit with microwaves through walls from a van. That's basically what that is.
Wow.
Through houses, because houses aren't they're not full metal, and a lot of them are brick, and it can permeate that. So if it's an unmarked van, it could be a van that's even like a public works van, something that is.
I think that's probably really common.
You wouldn't notice that.
The van thing.
And you get total this plausible deniability. I'm just here delivering some post, and while I'm delivering the post, I'm microwaving you at the same time. But I'm going to deny that. So this is something we need to watch out for. And the other one is neighbor to neighbor. You know, your neighbor is in on this this program because there's a money incentive, and if they're convinced that you are some type of domestic threat, they're given the equipment, or they particularly, or if they feel like it's vengeance directly, they might just microwave you. And again,
or they might rent out an apartment across the street from you.
Yes.
On purpose because they're part of it. So
there's many places you can hide this equipment, and of course helicopters, aircraft flying overhead can obviously tag you as well.
All right. So I just want to say you've had some experience with this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is there were some real life experiences where hopefully we'll have a chance to go into some of the stuff that you've experienced, but now we're just going to keep explaining what the technology is and what it looks like. And what's this?
This is another situation. Actually, I'm not sure if it's not in this particular slide, but there was a case in the United States where a woman won a court case, and she was a targeted individual, and she had to hire a technician that dealt with installing satellite dishes to basically do the investigation, and found that a neighbor took their satellite dish, redirected it towards her house, and he was using that satellite dish as a mode of transmitting microwaves to make her ill over a long period of time. They had to get the evidence just so they won the court case, and the actual perpetrator in his home, when he was caught and they had him in the court, the guy looked like he just aged 100 years because he was so scared because he was found out. But we see other illustrations where, again, a car could be someone driving through driving just, you know, an unmarked car or a regular car. These are just modes of attack, because they could be sitting on the street all day. If you're in your house for the most of the day, you could be getting a good lethal dose.
Okay, so before we go any further with all this, I just want to say that as a technician,
yes,
if you've got energy weapons being beamed at you, it's not like, well, what can I do? I'm just a sitting duck. There's nothing I can do. That's not true.
Yes.
Right? There are things that you can use to measure the environment around you so you can tell where the beams are coming from. There are things that you can put on your body.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do to physically create barriers around your body, your person, your home, in order to defend against these things. So it's good that you know that this stuff exists, and that you also know that there are tools that you can get and use in order to figure out where the beams are coming from so you can protect yourself and your family. Now, are we ready to go on to the next slide?
We're ready to go on to the next slide.
Okay, so I want to put a warning in here. We're going to show a picture of a microwave body. So it's very graphic, I'd say. And so if you got any kids or anything, or you don't want to see such things, please turn away or whatever you might say. So here we go. Okay.
You can.
So these are the effects of electronic harassment.
Yes.
And it's all these different symptoms here: heated body, feeling sick like having a flu, headaches that come and suddenly disappear, stinging sensations like a fly or mosquito, blurred vision, irresistible coughing, very serious diarrhea, heart attack, cramps. I mean, there's a long list of all these different effects that we have. But this body that we're looking at here, this is in the Iraq War.
Yes, so several years after the Iraq War, for the veterans that were coming home, they were disclosing information that they experienced, and these photos were basically smuggled out of the war zone. That there were people who were experimenting with weaponry, and this is a severe case of someone who was hit with this weapon. It was a microwave weapon that seemed to only charge the flesh, but the clothes and the surrounding material was left basically intact, unburned. So I think this was important to illustrate because electromagnetic weaponry have unique effects, and they seem to be very similar to the things that were happening on 9/11. So that's why this illustration is there, to show people that it's very unique. And this is an extreme case, but what we're talking about today are weapons that, at least for the moment, are things that try to kill you slowly over time, so that there is no direct proof that you've been, killed in such a manner.
Okay. Now, before we go on to our next clip, let's introduce it a little bit, because this next clip is a rather long one.
Yes.
It's about 14 or 15 minutes long. And who is it?
Okay, so
Barry Trower.
This gentleman, Barry Trower, he is an ex-MI5 agent, but he also served in the Royal Navy as a specialist, and particularly in microwave technology during the Cold War era, and basically he gives his account on the current state and of the technology that he is aware of. Is a disclosure to the general population on the advancement of this technology, because he's clearly concerned, and he is trying to basically let people know what's really going on.
So he's the real deal.
Yes.
And he's just listen very closely to what he says. I actually had to listen and take notes through each line so I could really digest the magnitude of what this man is disclosing in this clip.
Yes.
And it's from 2010.
2010
is when the clip was made, so there's been advancements since then. So he is telling you what they're using on the human population, and all of this is not known. We don't know about it. It's not covered on mainstream, obviously. And a lot of it, if not all of it, completely violates all kinds of, treaties, Nuremberg Treaty and all of that. So
you got to turn up the volume on this one.
You might have to turn up the volume a little bit on this one, and just try really hard to pay close attention to what he says. And it's about 15 minutes long. And Biggie, go ahead and run that clip.
Barry, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. It really is my pleasure.
I understand you have a wealth of experience with microwaves. Can you begin by explaining to us how you began your career in microwave technology?
Yes, of course. In 1960, I was in the Royal Navy, and I worked partly with the underwater bomb disposal unit, partly with microwave warfare, and some of the other time with radar. Microwaves were involved in all of those three different areas. So whilst I was in the Royal Navy, I trained in all aspects of microwave technology. And as anybody will tell you that's been in the forces, the training you receive is second to none. You practice it, you talk about it all day, you sleep it. So since 1960, I have been involved in all aspects of microwave technology. After that, a part of my job, because I had microwave expertise, was to question captured spies during the Cold War, when Russia and America were within seconds of global nuclear war. And microwaves by then were really sophisticated stealth weapons. And a part of my job was to find out from any spies who had been captured what the current knowledge was in that part of the world.
This technology is truly frightening, really frightening.
Well, this is why it's microwave weapons were introduced from the 1950s, 60s, 70s to the present day. And this is another level of proof. They are so effective, if you're not in a hurry to get rid of somebody, they are so effective as a stealth weapon to beam somebody, and this has been done many times, and it's recorded. You can beam people you don't like as a government to give them cancer, breast cancers, neurological illnesses. You can choose what you want them to get.
You can choose?
Oh, you can choose. You can choose which pulse frequency you want to affect the brain with. You can choose the level of microwave irradiation and the speed that you want them to become ill.
Yeah.
It really is a perfect stealth weapon, and all you need to do is rent a house opposite someone you want to get rid of, or a group of people you want to get rid of, and just beam them. The most famous case during the Cold War was the Moscow embassy siege, where in Moscow they beamed the entire American embassy and gave them cancer.
Did they cause cancers in all the staff, or in a lot of the staff? Or?
Most of the staff, most of the children got leukemia, the women developed breast cancer, the gentlemen developed cancers. I think after about 18 months the entire staff was changed, and then the following 18 months the entire staff was changed again. And by that time people realized what was going on, and they found that they were being irradiated by microwaves. And rather than say, oh, isn't this disgusting, what have we sunk to, they thought, isn't this wonderful, let's develop this for ourselves. And governments today are still perfecting microwave warfare.
Still to this day they're working on the weaponry?
Still to this day, 2010, they are still perfecting the pulse frequencies. It's got very, very sophisticated. The pulse frequencies, how long they can transmit, whether it can be one country to another, bouncing the microwaves off the ionosphere, so you don't even have to be in the same country.
Bouncing the microwaves off the ionosphere, a lot of people won't have heard of this technology. You're talking about the HAARP.
If you have a super transmitter, the microwaves, if you beam them, it's only a simple basic trigonometry.
Yeah.
But let's say I want to bring economic ruin to a country that grows all of the world's wheat.
Right.
Okay. All I have to do is beam microwaves up to the ionosphere, which is like an invisible cloud around the planet, an ion cloud around the planet. The microwaves going up at a set angle will reflect off down onto this country. And if I continuously beam the wheat in this field, or the cattle, or the sheep, I can I can reduce the immune system of the plants so that they won't be healthy and they will die, and I can stunt their growth, and I can bring economic ruin to that country. I can harm all of the animals, the cows, the sheep. It's so easy to do. You only have to push a button, and you can bring economic ruin to a country.
Which countries have this technology already available? Is it all the countries in the world or just a couple of them?
It may not be a wise
thing
to say on a live broadcast, but you can take my word for it that I know at least 2 super transmitters in the world that have this capability, and there are probably more in areas that I do not have access to and I cannot go to. But I know there are at least 2.
I need to just go back a little bit now.
Of course, yeah.
Back to your early days in the military. Mm-hmm. This technology was used by the British government?
Oh, okay, I can see where you're going.
It was used by the British government against terrorist groups?
We have 8,300 papers. I have knowledge of 2,300 myself. And what the governments found was that you could induce, by changing the pulse frequency, like Morse code, of the microwaves going into the brain and interfering with the brain. By specializing on the pulse frequency, you could induce psychiatric illnesses to the point where a psychiatrist could not tell if it is a genuine psychiatric illness or an induced psychiatric illness. So what you can do, theoretically, is you can target an individual's brain. They may have auditory hallucinations where they hear things, which is actually quite common with microwaves, or show signs of schizophrenia. For instance, 6.6 pulses a second can induce severe sexual aggression in men. So you could induce somebody to commit a really horrific sexual rape. So technically what you could do is have somebody committed to a psychiatric hospital or a jail for a crime just by somebody saying that they had a psychiatric problem whereby they didn't. Yeah. There is that. You can target other parts of people's bodies. You can target the heart and cause heart seizures. You can target the lungs and cause bleeding. You can target, if you're clever enough, some of the essential glands in the body that control all of the hormonal systems. So if you have dissidents or people that you don't like as a government, it's very, very easy these days to irradiate them and either have them wind up in jail or in a psychiatric hospital. And of course, there is no come on you.
Yeah. Now, these weapons that the governments have and are still using, are they more powerful than, for example, the Wi-Fi I might have in my front room, or my cordless phone, or a mobile phone transmitter?
No, in fact, they're actually, the power is slightly less.
Less?
The power is slightly less. The difference is, where you might use Wi-Fi, you might go in after work and do a couple of hours and then leave. And the Wi-Fi is going out in all directions. Here, they are targeting you probably with a beam. And it is on you all day. It can follow you everywhere you go, and it can target you when you're asleep as well. So you're really getting a concentrated dose. It's a bit like putting the light on in your house and sitting with a light, or have somebody follow you with a searchlight and beaming the searchlight on you all the time. So there is a difference between that. But in fact, the power can be less. It just takes longer. One specific paper from the government that lists all of the illnesses that you can get from microwave sickness, including severe neurological disorders. We have a government document that actually says this needs to be kept secret from the Western governments because it will affect the efficiency of the military, the weapons industry, and it will also affect industrial profit.
We have the government telling us that
This
technology is dangerous?
is the United States Defense Intelligence Agency advising the Western governments to keep this secret so that they can protect industrial profit and military functions.
Kind of startling, really, isn't it?
It is so horrific that if it wasn't real, if somebody wrote a book on this, I would say this is so stupid, you could never make up a story like this. And it all goes back. It goes back to the 50s, the 60s and the 70s, when microwaves were found to be such a perfect weapon and so dangerous to the military that the United States Defense Intelligence Agency told the Western governments to keep this quiet. And they did. And this is why we have this. We have documents that show that governments pay people to experiment on people against their wishes. Well, not against their wishes, without even telling them. So, and we have all this information going back to 1976. Everything was known by 1976. Everything. We needed no more proof, no more research, nothing was needed. And we have drawn up in this country, the Nuremberg Treaty. And the Nuremberg Treaty was signed by all of the nations of the world. And it is a very specific treaty. And what it says is that no human being will be experimented upon without his or her consent. And before they give consent, they have the legal right to understand all of the implications, the health problems, the future health problems, and they have the legal capacity to say no. And where this is relevant here is that there is only one exception with the Nuremberg Treaty, and that is a doctor such as yourself may experiment on his or herself only. That is the only exception. It is section 5. So no human being is allowed to be experimented upon.
Everybody? All right. So, electronic harassment effects.
Okay.
We're going to move into that again, go a little more in depth, right?
Yeah, so when you get the download,
The PowerPoint.
the PowerPoint download, you'll be able to see this more clearly.
Great graphic.
This graphic basically has the human body and the particular areas that these perpetrators like to target. And depending on what they target can trigger effects, okay? So that's basically what you're looking at with that diagram. By varying the pulse width of the microwave beam, different bodily functions and behaviors can be triggered. Illnesses can even be induced. These weapons have been developed, but we weren't told the methods to detect these kinds of harassment, and we weren't told that they were developed. And there's a denial of this abusive application of technology in the media and law enforcement. And below is the court case I mentioned earlier, Kathleen Watterson. So if you just Google that and put that on YouTube, you'll actually find the YouTube interview where her and the technician talk about the court case and how they were able to put a perpetrator behind bars that was actually trying to microwave her from another house.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff. This really makes it real. When you start looking up the patent numbers for these things.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing for you here, guys. We're showing you this is the patent number for this technology. We're not making it up. It exists, right?
When you find the patents to these, you find that it's block diagrams and just a general basic schematic, because that design could be put in all kinds of platforms. So yeah, that's just an example of a patent, of a voice to skull patent, and it goes adult. You look it up and read about it.
Okay.
This is another independent patent showing how you would heterodyne two different microwave frequencies to get sound and voice, and how you can, and in the effects, it shows that you can get hearing, or you hear a ringing or a buzzing in your actual physical ear, even though the noise is taking place, the perceived noise is taking place inside your brain.
Now, when we get to the tooth, is that in the tracking information?
The truth is a track. Yeah,
okay,
tracking.
so we're going to get to that soon.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Now, this is important because Tom Bearden is a retired Army general, I believe, a colonel, and he has a website called Chenier.org. He's been online forever, basically, and he's one of the first people to talk about this technology and its effects on free energy. What you're looking at in this diagram is how you can mix electromagnetic fields to create effects that are like sound waves, or create things like changes in temperature, changes in pressure, in the area where they intersect.
That's really interesting.
So in this diagram, you have the squares where the beams intersect. That's where it's the affected area. So in that affected area, you can have things like sound, or you can have changes in temperature. You can have all kinds of effects depending on what power you apply, what frequency you apply. Now imagine the scalar, the transmitter 1 and transmitter 2 in this diagram are two different cell towers. And if you had the means of controlling a signal from two different or two more microwave sources, imagine what you can do with that technology. So this is basically just outlining the general idea behind that. What we have here are examples of tracking technologies, but the first technology we need to be aware of is something called a fractal antenna. You have antennas that you hang out on your house, or used to, that were used to pick up terrestrial signals. They're a certain size, maybe a couple of feet long. These fractal antennas, they use chaos theory and patterns that repeat over and over and over again.
Fractal patterns.
So when you use fractal patterns, it was discovered recently that you can make antennas much, much smaller because they have a large bandwidth. So these little tiny antennas have like the performance of like much, much larger antenna arrays. So it's very powerful. And what you're looking, so they're similar designed to maximize the length or increase the perimeter on the side sections of the outer structure. The material can receive or transmit electromagnetic radiation within the given total surface area or volume. And so the first one you see is like on a PCB or circuit board, copper traces that are shaped like a tree. And on the second illustration is like a theoretical 3D antenna made of metal that looks like a root structure or tree branches. So this shows you that these are basically these repeating patterns are ideal antenna structures. And now you're going to see why. Now, in more tracking methods, we're seeing the RFID size tracking chip used for animals. This basically talks about the parts of the chip and its size. And as you're about to see, technology has progressed since then. This shows another application of the chip, how it can be injected with the syringe and the size of it. We go to the next one.
This one really creeps me out. Okay, the size of it's dust. It's microchip dust.
So the image on the left is a chip called, I think it's called a Mu chip by Hitachi. They're really proud about these chips. And the other chip on the right is similar technology, but these are called smart chips. And the idea behind them is that they relay certain basic RFID information through RFID. And they're used, the application that is released for these chips that they put as like an advertising thing is that they'd be great for sensors. So that if you spray them in the, in the ocean or in the clouds, you can get like a good readout of the weather climate and all these different things.
Okay, so what we're leading up to here also is we're showing you the fractal antennas. So we're showing you antennas. We're showing you beaming technology. We're trying to help put this together for you, because if you take one a microwave weapon and then you take some kind of antenna and you combine them together, you can create horrible health effects. And here's the thing. An antenna is not those two poles that you have on the top of your TV that you have to move back and forth, or on your radio, or it's like antennas are turning into more than what we used to know them as. So that little fractal antenna is one antenna. These microchips are forms of antennas for programming. And it gets even more intense, because what we're showing you here is that all of the stuff that's being dumped into the air is turning us into antennas.
Yes.
Because we're filled with metal and all of these particles. And then when we are a walking antenna, it's easy to track us. It's easy to target weapons at us, all different kinds of weapons. It's easy to make us lose our minds. There's a lot of stuff that they can do with this. So now we're going to go into another, okay, this is the RFID. So chip
this
again,
an RFID chip. These chips, pick up an RFID signal. They basically send information back at that size, and as you can see, they have a bunch of them floating in a vial of fluid.
Right. So you've heard of, like, the mark of the beast, and they're gonna microchip everybody, and that's how they're gonna control you, and all your stuff's gonna go on a microchip, and so, but it's more than that.
More subtle than that.
Like, how can they get people to put microchips in their body? And most people are like, oh, heck no.
Yeah.
Don't put that in me. I'm not going to get a microchip in my body. So what do? They'll put it in the air so that you don't know that you're being microchipped.
Yes, that's right.
Right? So now we get down to another level, because it gets even smaller than those. Yes. It gets into nanoscale.
Yes, that's right. So that's where the technology of smart dust has gotten to the nanoscale. On the right, you see an example of a diagram that was taken off a research paper and it's available online. But basically, these chips now have like a polymer, so that the body, I guess, will accept it, but they have a polymer thing around them. And on the left isn't a nanochip. It's just the effects of nanoparticles in general. Pieces of metal that are just nanoscale grains, and that was taken out of a paper with doctors basically disclosing that they have concerns about the effects of just nanoparticles being accepted by the body going through the blood-brain barrier. That was their, when doctors put out, anyone who's read these things, when doctors put out, when they say they have concerns, that means it's probably 2-3 times worse than what
right.
they're saying the possible implications are.
So this stuff can get into your skin. And the next slide, I just put this in there as a follow-up from our last show, where we were talking about GANs. The GANs that you hear about used from the Keshi technology is a form of untested contaminated ormus, and we went through what ormus was, which contains electrically conductive nanoparticles. This can turn you into a walking antenna. These nanoparticles go into your skin, turn you into an antenna, and it can also lead to heavy metal poisoning, okay, at the very least. So it's another thing that's not good for you. It's toxic to the body, and it can be used to turn you into an antenna so that they can point weapons at you. Now we'll move forward, because this is also being done, the same concept is being done through chemtrails. Excuse me, I have a scratchy throat today. So, chemtrails covertly microchip us in order to create antennas inside of us via nanotechnology, so as to make us totally controllable via a psycho-civilized, electronically mind-controlled society. Using HAARP microwave antennas, the National Security Agency can establish a seamless computer link directly to our brains. But first, they're using chemtrails to get the nanoparticles into us, which are reassembling in our bodies to form the antennas. Chemtrails contain a nasty mix of parasites, pathogens, toxic heavy metals, including barium and aluminum, and worst of all, high-tech nano-engineered particles designed in a lab to assemble themselves inside of our bodies into nanomachines, which will microchip us from the inside unless we do cleanses to remove the particles to keep them from assembling inside of our bodies. Okay, so there is, there's two videos here. We're going to play one short one for you today, but there's another video here that's actually been created and put out by a member of our team. It's called The Intelligence of Geoengineering, and it's one of the best coverages of chemtrails that I've seen, and it talks about the agenda behind the chemtrails, what's in it, why are they spraying, what are they spraying. Those are also two really good documentary films. What in the world are they spraying, and why in the world are they spraying? So it goes more in depth into this, because it's not just into our bodies, but it's our whole environment, so they can control it that way. But right now, what you're seeing here is a picture of HARP antennas beaming something out, right? So the beam, I think, has been superimposed on the picture. It doesn't actually look like that, but these HARP antennas are pretty intense. Now, here's something that happened just recently, I think just a few weeks back. Something came by my newsfeed thread, and I put it on my blog. The existence of chemtrails and the fact that they are chemtrails and they're dumping metal into the air and chemicals into the air, and that there might be linked to some black ops operations, actually finally made its way to mainstream news, which is fascinating. It's only been up, a couple weeks or a week or so. It's got tons. It's our most viewed post on the entire blog right now. People are fascinated to see that chemtrails are on mainstream TV. So we're going to go ahead and run this clip. And go ahead, Biggie, and let's run KLAS, Nevada TV reports chemtrails.
Strange things in the sky are pretty much an everyday occurrence here in Nevada. Right now, our skies are buzzing with aircraft flying in red flag exercises, and who knows what they're testing up at Area 51.
But the object that recently appeared over a nearby town has people scratching their heads, wondering, what the heck was that?
Well, the person who photographed the object contacted who else? The I-Team's George Knapp.
It kind of looks like a cloud, but it's not a natural cloud anyway. You'll see why in just a few seconds. It's a white, fluffy formation that could have been emitted from the back of an aircraft, though not like any aircraft that's been made public. So what is it? And is it connected to all those other puffy lines we see in our skies?
Yeah, they were just out over here. Just out here about halfway across the pond.
On a clear day back in December, Alamo resident and amateur photographer Malcolm Harris stopped to capture images of ducks sitting in water just off Highway 93. He spotted something else in the sky above the field.
It was long puffs of smoke, like it looked like a rope. It kind of like there was a solid rope on the top, and then little puffs of smoke underneath it. And they were quite tight. I'd definitely say it was man-made. It wasn't anything natural.
This is what he photographed. Harris, the son of a longtime Las Vegas newsman, ran some calculations based on his lens angle and estimates the odd cloud was about a mile distant and perhaps 500 yards long. But it was dense, like puffs of smoke that had been crammed together.
You could see where it began and where it ended, and there was nothing on either end. It was very clean. It stood by itself. There wasn't anything else around it. I've seen clouds being made out here in the desert. You see all of a sudden you'll see a cloud being made, and that's not what was going on.
He didn't hear anything, so whatever formed the cloud was quiet. Alamo is buzzed almost daily by warplanes from nearby Nellis Air Base. Residents also know that on the other side of the mountains is the most famous secret base in the world, Area 51, where the government tests the most advanced otherworldly technology in its arsenal.
When you say what's out there, you mean right out there?
Where?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Harris's photo is similar to exhaust patterns spotted a few times since the 90s, the so-called donuts on a rope, which set the aviation world on fire. Since the 80s, there's been speculation about something called Project Aurora, a family of super-secret delta-shaped craft that may use a pulse detonation engine, a system that could produce donuts on a rope exhaust patterns. Bill Sweetman, one of the most respected aviation writers in the world, thinks Aurora is real. He uncovered what appears to be a paper trail in the black budget that funneled billions of dollars to Aurora, or something like it. But what does Sweetman think about this photo? If they're donuts, they sure are crammed together. After talking to defense industry colleagues, Sweetman suggested the cloud may have been created by using advanced pyrotechnics, in essence, flares that are used by fast jets as countermeasures to confuse an enemy. But another senior aviation writer and test pilot, Bill Scott, disagrees. Scott told us that flares don't lay horizontally, as this one does. He does not think it's a contrail, more like a plume. But after asking around, Scott and the colleagues he consulted say they have no idea what made it. Best guess, an unknown dispensary of some sort. Mal Harris is likewise skeptical that it was caused by flares.
They don't go in a straight line. You could definitely tell that had some sort of propulsion behind it.
Cloud-like formations, presumably contrails, are a hot topic online. An entire genre of conspiracy theories has evolved over the past decade or so. The so-called chemtrails. The internet is filled with chemtrail sites which allege that the checkerboard patterns in the skies are part of a global plot to spray something into the atmosphere. AboveTopSecret.com gets up to 4 million visits per month, and its 300,000 members have thoroughly digested the chemtrail storyline.
Chemtrails, contrails, chemtrails. If you do a cursory look at the site, you'll see there are thousands of pages of discussion dedicated to chemtrails/contrails.
Millions of people are watching the skies to look for evidence of what they think is a global conspiracy, a massive spraying operation carried out by persons unknown for reasons that are not clear. The I-Team first dug into this topic more than 12 years ago, and we can tell you for a certainty that an awful lot of stuff really is being sprayed up there in the sky. Global conspiracy? That's not so clear. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we jump into the thick of the chemtrail versus contrail controversy.
Boy, interesting stuff. Thanks, George.
From 8.
All right, so just a bit of a recap then.
Yes.
The tracking technologies. So the microchips are composed of aluminum, barium, titanium, oxide, graphene, and silicon, and nanoparticles from chemtrails are mostly aluminum, barium, and strontium. So these metals lodged into the body can turn you into an antenna.
Yeah.
Okay. What's this?
So toxic and various metals, you're now a walking fractal antenna. You know, you think of your nerves in your body are now contaminated with nanoparticles. That's how you're being picked up. Now your nerve endings, you act like a wire. You act like a walking wire, walking antenna. That allows you to be tracked and managed by would-be dictators and despots with the push of a button. And this is how you create an open-air concentration camp. So now you're not necessarily carted off. You're not necessarily carted off by the men in black. The concentration camp comes to you in the form of a virtual grid.
Oh wow! Look at all these patents. Okay, so we've got the oral electronic tracking
Okay, so
device.
just a brief description of a few of the patents. The first two are basically dental patents. If you look at them, basically it talks about an implant in your filling, implant in your root canal. And it's like an RFID type of thing. So unless you're being told, I mean, basically you can think of the implications for that, but basically it says, yes, it's tracking you by your teeth.
Well, I just wanted to talk about that for just a second.
Okay.
Because can we go ahead and share that?
Okay, we can.
All right. So what happened was Devon's had problems with these things. So because he's a technician and he can figure out all this electricity, right? So, and the beams, and he's been doing different things and testing it to see if it works. Then he discovered, because he has a root canal. He had a root canal.
Yeah, had a root canal.
And it was fascinating. Well, that's a light way to put it, but we've got this one device that measures where the wires come in from, right? So it's like a little, not the wires.
It's a field. It's like a field counter.
It's a field counter. Okay, so it starts beeping really loud when there's a field and a signal being picked up. One of these types of signals. So I was putting it next to his face, and right over on this side was where his root canal was. And as soon as you got close to it, it was beep, 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 and there was, beep, 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 nowhere else. I tried it on me.
Zero.
So we were able to actually zero in that he was transmitting signal from his root canal.
And we have it on video.
And we have it on video. We're going to put it up on YouTube in a little bit. So we went to the dentist who thought he was crazy for removing his root canal. But he went and he looked up these patents and saw that they are putting tracking technology inside of root canals and also inside of fillings. And the dentists don't know what they're doing. They're just using the new amalgam that comes in that week or whatever, right?
Yes.
So that stuff is going on. And as soon as he got it taken out, a lot of the signals were lessened. You had some pain, you had like a pain in your face, and there's something in your ear, in your left ear, right? A whole bunch of different symptoms went away as soon as the root canal tooth was extracted. So, okay, so we're moving forward. Patents. Okay, other tracking methods.
Okay, this is just to show that there's a person I think you should look at, a German scientist and journalist by the name of Harold Vella. He has 2 YouTube links talking, and he just gives a good description of the technology in the more in-depth, longer talks. And also the NASA document. The NASA released a document talking about this technology and its applications, and it's amazing. But they actually did talk about this document that was undisclosed called Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare, circa 2025. The future is now. So if you put that in Google search engine, you'll get the document. You can download it and read for yourself. It's talking about nanobots used as swarms, intelligently basically control dust in the air.
Oh my goodness.
As a chemtrail delivery system, and something called explosive smart dust. Again, swarms of dust that go into a target and then explode. It's interesting stuff.
Wow. Okay, so we got through a lot of that. Are we going into solutions now?
Yes, let's go into solutions.
Woo! Thanks for hanging in there with us, guys. That's a lot of really ugly stuff. Yeah. But like I said in the beginning, there's real things you can do to protect yourself. You don't have to be afraid of these things. They exist, but we can beat them.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of these solutions. We're going to go through a bunch of them.
Okay. Ignore dismissed or inserted threats, fears, or negative thoughts. So anyone who's a TI that's being electronically harassed, you know exactly where I'm coming from. Again, this is something I'd never wish on anyone to experience. But any inserted threats or fears or things to basically lure you as a person, to make you feel unconfident, to make you feel depressed, dismiss them. You must reinforce yourself that you are a human being and you have rights, and you must assert yourself as a human being on this planet.
Yes, and the power of prayer. So we can mention that too. If you're a victim of this stuff, and you feel like you're losing your mind and all of that, we're not going to discuss which belief system or religious background you might come from, but just prayer in general is extremely effective to combat this kind of stuff. And there's been some tough times where I've been with Sivan, and he's been undergoing an attack of sorts, and we stop and we pray together, and that stops the attack.
I can't imagine personally, I have a strong belief in God. I can't imagine not having one with the things that we've experienced, that I've experienced. And yes, it's invaluable, the power of prayer.
And also there are targeted individual support groups out there.
Yes.
And so if you can have that, and also having an understanding and close friend or partner, that's really helpful. Because if you're with somebody that doesn't know what's going on, and you're like trying to tell them that you're being targeted and they don't support you, that could be really hard to deal with. So try to find a good friend that gets it.
Yes, that's right.
Right, that you can talk to, because just talking about it has been extremely helpful.
Yes.
Now we're talking a lot about the mental stuff here, right? All
yes.
the mental things, that's what we're covering here. We'll go into some of the physical stuff in a second.
Yeah.
And then learn how to make Organite.
Yes.
And share.
Yes.
Right? We'll talk about Organite in a minute.
That's right.
And we can wear EM protection.
Yeah, again, when you do more research on, there are a lot of sensitive people who are sensitive to EMF online, and it's becoming a market. They're not being necessarily targeted, but they are sensitive to like mobile phone or cell phone towers. So there are clothes, there are things you can wear that are available online that you can buy that have some shielding on the body, but that you can wear out in public. So it's out there.
Okay. Stay healthy, perform a heavy metal detox, which we'll talk about in just a second.
Very important.
And live your life as normal. Remember, these demons are the sick psychopathic pervs and sadists.
Yes, they're the perps for spying in on you 24/7, not your body.
Yeah. There's more actions you can take. You can have an action cam or recording device with you at all times. Take photos of any suspicious activities and build a case file.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time and effort, but
And money.
and money too to buy all the surveillance equipment. But that's basically what a lot of people have had to resort to in order
Yes.
to prove their case, because
That's right.
you know, and it is tough. But also, you continue to research ways of gathering more evidence of voice-to-skull technologies and ways to attenuate the effects upon yourself and share with online and local TI community. And hire your own investigator. And there was an interesting video also that a targeted individual, and he was measuring. So if you look this stuff up on YouTube, you'll find some videos that you can start with some of the ones that we've given you here.
Yeah, it's a good start.
But there's videos of other targeted individuals that are trying to figure out how to handle this and how to combat this. Now, the next thing I want to just touch on briefly, because we're running a little low on time because we have a lot to get through. So what I did here is I just put some really good links. I want you all to know that there's ways that you can get these metals out of your body, okay?
Yes.
So it's just detoxing. So there's certain things that you can do. This is a great article, How to Rid Your Body of Heavy Metals, a 3-step detoxification plan. There's some other research here with cilantro and chlorella can remove 80% of heavy metals from the body within 42 days.
Amazing.
There's all different kinds of supplements and things. So if you start focusing in on trying to detox your body from the heavy metals and also balancing out your minerals, getting your gut healthy, there's all different kinds of things that go along with detox, and it's very, very effective in combating all of this type of warfare.
Your body is very resilient despite all of this
It
stuff.
is. Now here's something fun. Organite.
Okay, so with the things that have been going on in the past 2 years, I really took on an interest in Organite, researched it, and I started making a batch of Organite. But basically what it is, again, it's this resinous material that you make into shapes, sometimes in jewelry, that was invented by Carl Hans Wells. It's a mixture of catalyzed epoxy resin with metal shavings and particles or powders poured into molds. It attracts orgone energy, similar to Reich's accumulators. Some people also add quartz crystals to the mixture to enhance the performance of Organite. So Organite basically is a substance which functions as a self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient energy transmutation device, drawing in the negative energy and turning it into positive energy.
The thing that I like about Organite, and you'll notice what we're showing here, this is Tavon's Organite, which is made out of powders. So it's not the clear resin with all the pretty shapes in it. It's got a different look and feel because the powders have more surface area and are actually much, much stronger when it comes to the defense of the EMF fields.
Yes, I was thinking more of a functional.
Yeah, this is, so in other words, these are like the magic bullets, Organite. They're really powerful. And when I say powerful, I don't mean, oh, they feel really powerful like a crystal would feel. I mean, you can measure this. Right? You can take an electric meter and you can measure this.
The ion counter.
And I want to just actually give a little bit of a testimony.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing that for just a second because we're going to hold up some of these
Okay,
things.
yeah.
He started making these pendants, right? And these are just really simple pendants. It's Organite, and there's a neodymium magnet on the back. And I've got one here that I wear all the time. And I just have to say that what happens when you wear something like this against your body, against your skin, it's actually neutralizing all the Wi-Fi, cell phone towers, and any kind of like beams that might be coming at me that make me like all crazy and jittery. And it actually kind of like does this thing where I have this, it calms me down. I sleep with it on.
When you first put it on, you wanted to take a nap.
When I first put it on, there was an adjustment where I was like, whoa, I should take a nap. But it was like, it was very calming, and it allows me to not have like that this anxiety that I sometimes I used to have anxiety or whatever, like a lot of us do. It's a very stressful world, right? So these are pendants. You can wear them on your body. We'll hold up some more stuff we've got here.
Charge plate.
Here's the actual charge plate. It's double-sided. The gold color you see is brass.
Brass, yeah.
So that's a brass powder, and then he made 2 of them and glued them together. Right. So a charge plate is something that you could put things on, like you could charge your drinks or your food. You put your plate of food on there, and it actually helps.
Yeah, conditions.
It structures the water.
You'll see it in another picture
We're gonna have
soon.
some stuff, so you can use stuff to structure your water. What's this?
Pyramid.
We've got Giza measurements for a pyramid that you made, right? It's got a nice soft bottom on there, and we're still working on getting this stuff up so we can sell it as well.
Yeah.
We actually are selling it here in Morocco and
in Spain.
In Spain as well, and these pendants are really popular. People love them. And this is like your tower buster.
So this is it's like for your desk or for your home.
Right.
It's all powders.
It's all powders. So these are things you put around the house. Then you have things you put on your body. You have things that you can put your food and your drinks on. There's all different things you can do that way. And again, it makes a huge difference. We've got these all over the house.
Yeah.
We've created a fortress here. And interesting things happen in the clouds above our house. Like chemtrails start to break up.
You see them
above our house.
Yeah.
And, so we have this fortress. Tavon made a whole bunch of these and went around and surrounded the entire property. So we're in this nice, safe bubble. So let me go back and share my screen so we can get through some more organite material and information. Okay, so this is the, these are the different powders that you use.
Yeah, different powders. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, sure. Organite emits soft electrons that can be detected from an ion counter. A charge plate, a flat dish-like disc made from the substance, is able to change the pH of drinks sitting on top of it. When freezing water above organite, a tornado pattern is frozen in the ice, giving the water a crystalline structure when it thaws. The resin in organite shrinks during the curing process, permanently squeezing the quartz crystal inside, which creates a well-known piezoelectric effect inside the crystal, meaning its endpoints become polarized electrically. This apparently causes it to function more effectively as a positive energy generator. Although crystals improve the function of organite, they are not necessary for the organite to work, and that's important because a lot of people, you see a lot of organite with lots of crystals, and it's all crystals.
Yeah.
And crystals, they have functions.
They have some function.
In the electronic world.
Yeah.
A lot of them are really used for a lot of spiritual reasons.
Yes.
But they do use crystals inside of electronics and computers and things, but they're not necessary for the organite to work.
Yeah, that's right. So organite converts harmful EM. Anyone can build these devices with easy-to-find materials. There's so much information online, you can just jump right in and start experimenting. Organite is simply a mix of metal and resin, polyester, urethane, or epoxy. I tend to use epoxy, jewel-grade resin. It can be poured into all kinds of shapes, pyramids, cones, discs, cylinders, and pendants, to name a few. Some people use it to combat pollution and cell tower radiation. Now, for me, that's one of the primary reasons I make it. Others use it for clearing or purifying energies in their houses or enhance the growth of their plants in the garden. They definitely do help with the plant growth. It seems to work also really well in various kinds of spiritual healing work. And we have received positive feedback on the organite we've given organite to the local community, like Hope already mentioned. And we've talked about how we've seen performance overhead with the chemtrails.
We're also doing some gifting trips in the future.
And we're doing gifting in the future as well.
So gifting is when you go to a location that has a lot of
EM
fields, cell phone towers, bad for the environment, and you start throwing some organite into some bushes near the cell phone tower so that you can help to neutralize the bad effects of the field. So it's called gifting.
Gifting.
And we're going to take some gifting trips in the future and start you know, planting organite all over the place and messing up their plan.
It's done all over the world, and they've been doing it for a long time. But it's good to be a part of that. So what you see also 2 pictures of showing what organite does to water. If you just take a glass of water that you pour and have a charge plate, then you can tell the strength of the plate by putting a glass of water, putting it in the freezer, or have an ice tray, put it next to the organite, and you get these cloudy regions where it's basically structured, dense regions of water that you wouldn't normally get just in a normal situation. And you actually get a tornado with the charge plate. And it's very strong tower busters. You see this vortex column going straight up.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Actually, let's just make that a little bit bigger. And while we're, yeah, because that's a really cool pattern. I want everybody to really see that. While we're here, just want to let everybody know if you're listening live, we will have a few minutes left in the end to take some questions.
Yeah.
So if you've got any questions for any of the material that we've covered today, or in general, just please go ahead and type your questions into the chat. Angela's in there to take your questions, and hopefully we'll have some questions. And if not, then we can always go ahead and end a little bit early this time.
Yeah.
We did go over last time, so. But check out this amazing pattern of the ice and how the ice freezes with this vortex. You can actually see the energy from the organite frozen in ice in time, in the water. It's really amazing. Okay, so let's go on to this amazing soul, Wilhelm Reich. He's the guy that
basically
started all this.
Yeah, started this, really took forward this, discovering this form of energy and how he interpreted it, and actually started creating technology that was able to harness the power of this energy, like organite. So he was born in 1897. He is an Austrian psychoanalyst. He's author of several influential books, most notably Character Analysis, The Mass Psychology of Fascism, and The Sexual Revolution. Reich became known as one of the most radical practitioners of psychiatry. Reich's discovery of orgone, he also revealed the role of emotional sexual energy in the psychosomatic process. What was first appeared to be only bioelectricity was later clarified by Reich as much more powerful bioenergetic force, a form of life energy at work within living organisms, expressing itself as emotion and sexuality, but also directly observable in the microscope as a bluish glowing field around the living blood cells and other substances. So basically anything that is interpreted to have life to it has this blue field around it. This bluish glowing energy, which he eventually called orgone energy, and is a physical phenomenon, and it's similar to older ideas of vital force, the cosmic ether, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
During the course of Reich's investigations, he developed a special metal-lined enclosure which attracted a high charge of orgone energy inside itself, directly from the atmosphere. So basically, what we showed you with all the negative effects, you can use the same technology for good.
Yes.
Right? So this is the flip side. The orgone energy accumulator. The orgone accumulator was proven to charge seeds and increase garden plant growth, speed the healing of burns and cuts, and there are a number of physical experiments which demonstrate anomalous phenomenon inside the accumulator. Reich observed that certain kinds of low-energy illness, such as cancer, would symptomatically yield to careful application of the orgone accumulator. And what are these? What are these visuals we're seeing here?
Okay, so the one on the left is an orgone accumulator, where you can either, like you have a shelf there, so you can have items in there, like food, but also you can remove the shelf and have people sitting in it. And Reich was using it to treat his patients with all kinds, who had all kinds of illnesses. And the middle one is basically a chamber, and it's showing how positive and negative energy is collected in the middle of the orgone chamber that is basically nothing but a wooden box that has walls of varying steel wool and fiberglass as like almost like plates.
It almost sounds like
a capacitor.
Like a capacitor,
yeah,
but also like the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, again, we have this theme of varying metal, non-metal, metal, non-metal, metal, non-metal as walls. And when you encase something with those walls, you get an effect into space. It's not just space anymore. There's a potential there. And Reich realized this, and he was using that to run his devices. And the last image on the right is what is his cloud buster. He found ways of harnessing or pulling the negative orgone, he called, or deadly orgone, or DOR, from the air, and was channeling it into the water. And by doing this, this was very synonymous with how weather patterns formed, or how rain clouds formed or dissipated. And he was using this cloud buster, for example, to try to bring the rain in the deserts of the United States when he was experimenting.
So we're on our last slide here. Reich's experiment in these directions led to even more controversy, new methods for ending drought and greening deserts, leading to the development of the cloud buster and new approaches to the problem of nuclear waste detoxification. So we got some references there for you. And I remember he was one of the free energy deaths that we covered in our second show as well. He was found in his jail cell. Arrested him?
Yes, so the FDA were on him for a long time with his various research. Basically, they didn't like what he was doing with his research, and they put him in prison.
Because he was helping people.
And basically, before, it's like a day or so before he was to be released, he was dead in his jail cell.
Yeah. So anyway, there you have it. We're going to stop sharing our screen and bring Anjan to say hello. Let's see what's been going on in the chat room. Ange, if you can go ahead and share your video with us.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nothing's going on in the chat room today. No questions. People are just loving what you're sharing and just eating it up.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Since we have a few minutes left here, we will just, we'll talk a little bit about the purpose for these shows, the purpose for what we do. So we actually put these shows together because we wanted to create like an awareness campaign to say that we know our stuff, we're doing what we're doing, so that we can bring some awareness to the work that we do. And so we're trying to build a new generator. We still have the QEG going strong. There's all kinds of really awesome things going on with the big QEG.
Yes.
But you don't hear too much about it because we've privatized a lot of that project because we couldn't keep reporting every single little tiny thing. However, we did just release a huge 3-hour tuning video a couple of weeks ago. And this tuning video, it's like, it's the kind of thing that we normally would charge for, but this sort of information was so well done. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make sure that it got out there for people that are building the big QEG. So James Robitaille, who, oh, by the way, he was supposed to come on today, but we had to shift our schedule around a little bit because last week's show took on a life of its own. It was really big. It's got a lot of views, and it's created a lot of ruckus. We've got a great stuff happening from last week's show and not so great stuff, and people are pretty upset when they heard about some of the things that we disclosed. But we're just trying to do some research and just put it out there so that you guys can decide what it is. And that's the reason why we do these shows. And just so you know, Hope Girl is a whistleblower. I've always been a whistleblower from day one, and that's how I became Hope Girl. I blew the whistle at my job, and I lost my job as a result of it. And if I see something like what we found, then I'm going to go ahead and blow the whistle, because especially if it's harming people. So I want to make sure that people don't lose their money and they don't lose their health if it's dangerous. I just want to let you guys know what's going on out there. So with that said, we've got our project that we're working on.
Yes, that's right.
If you can just talk a little bit about it, I'm going to pull up a picture because I wanted to show people our progress.
Okay, all right. So, as you know, for the past several weeks, we've been running a Tesla Gen V1 campaign. Now, this is the mini QEG. This is the mini generator that operates on the same principle as the big QEG. So we've been running a campaign to raise funds to build a prototype of this generator. And I'm happy to say that the manufacturers in China have started finishing some of the parts for the mini QEG. And piece by piece, we're getting it put together.
Some of the parts.
So
this
we're
isn't
about
the
to
core,
share some images.
but we just wanted to share with everybody. So, like, you know, this is like our second sonogram
Yes, yeah, it is.
of our new baby that's coming out. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. So I just want to make sure everybody sees what we're up to. And so here is the first few pictures. We're hoping that we're going to get some really great footage,
Yeah.
you know, next week. Let me see if I can get this bigger. Right, so these are, what are these, the end plates?
So what you're looking at are polycarbonate plates at the top. Basically, that goes for building the ends of the generator. And what you see below are the black support blocks of the generator. That's going to form the frame to construct the generator with support rods. If you haven't seen it already, you can go to the hopegirlblog.com, and there's the Tesla Gen V1 campaign. If you click on that campaign, you'll see the, I think it was like a 15-minute video.
Yep.
And in that video describes the basic, I show on CAD, on the computer program, the different parts of the generator and how it's constructed, and basically how you can download the plans for a kind donation of $100. You get the CAD files. If you know a machinist, if you know someone who can build with you, you can start building alongside of us, because this is a co-development project.
Yes, and it's really exciting for us to get these things now. I just want you to know that as we're building, what I'm going to be doing is, you know, filming everything I can, and I can almost hear my computer like panting out of breath, because I'm flying with my fingers and I'm doing everything I got to do to get these this footage out there. It takes a long time for me to create these films and upload them to YouTube, especially with our upload speed in Morocco. It takes, like, it's an overnight thing. Angela, who's on these shows with us in the background, she has been doing a ton of work to help with getting these videos up. And by the way, guys, we've got several different video platforms. I mean, we've got a Podbean account, we've got a Vimeo account, we've got a YouTube account. We're mirroring YouTube videos. So when we get this information together, we disseminate it out onto many different platforms to make sure that nobody can ever pull it down, nobody can ever suppress it, and it's always available to people everywhere that they can find us. So that's what we're doing, and I'm looking forward to making lots of videos of the work that we're doing here. And as the parts come in, and we're also going to be sending you some videos from China as they're putting them together.
Yes.
We're going to have the guys in China. We're going to record some of the calls with Skype.
We'll see if we can do Skype with them. Can't guarantee it. We'll see if we can.
Yeah, we'll try. Well, we do have one Skype call for another part from another Chinese manufacturer.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
This is really important, because you see those 3D images, and you can easily be fooled.
Yes.
Saying, oh, it's so big and fancy, it's this big 3D image, but what we're showing you is an actual photograph of actual parts that are actually being manufactured right now. It's real. It's not just a 3D image of a fake thing that, you know,
that
looks
may or may
nice,
not happen.
May or may not happen. So we only have a little over a week left for our campaign.
Yes.
So we're still at a little over $8,000 raised. It's been a little frozen.
Yes. Yeah.
There, not too much has come in the last couple of days. So if you can go ahead and make a donation to our campaign, that would be fantastic. And I just want you to know that whether we make our goal or we don't, we're still moving forward with this project. Maybe we just might not be able to do as many of the experiments that we wanted to do because we didn't make the whole campaign, but we're still moving forward. This is still happening, and this is going to be available for people who want real free energy in their homes. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And so that's it. I think with that, we will we'll end just a couple minutes early. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next week. We're bringing in a special guest for an interview, and we're going to talk about GEET technology. All right? Have a great night, everybody.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into CCN. This unique network is dedicated to free and independent media. CCN was created with the belief that information is the common heritage of all beings, which is why our live stream high-definition broadcast is easily accessible and free to view. If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Having produced over 1,000 shows in 2015, which are all archived on YouTube, we look forward to bringing you more groundbreaking, cutting-edge information in 2016. For more information on what is on, please check out our broadcast guide for weekly updates. CCN broadcasts in multiple languages and features some key voices of our challenging times who are all in pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world. CCN belongs to you, the people, and it is up to you all to keep this network on the air. Please contribute to the Network Support Fund or visit the CCN shop. We thank you all for supporting free and independent media.